Welcome to our Biz Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Cuthbert, Creative Director at Baker Creative. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it. Welcome, Chief Potts. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We're really excited to have you. So tell everyone, what you do and your title.
So I am the first assistant chief for the Columbus Division of Police, and I oversee public corruption unit. I oversee Community and Wellness Bureau, which encompasses our traffic division, also encompasses all of our community wellness programs like peer support, recruiting, cadet section, public safety corps. And then on the other side of the house, I do special operations, which is all of our tactical units. So our SWAT, narcotics, vice enforcement, all of our task force. So all of the sexy organized crime work.
Tell everyone how you got into the business to begin with.
Oh, I joined the police department in Detroit, Michigan, right after I graduated from high school. So at the age of 18 years old, I walked into the Detroit Metropolitan Academy, applied to be a police officer, and shortly thereafter was chosen to start the academy class after they did the usual background check and all of those things. And so I've been a police officer about 28 years now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you.
What's your favorite thing about the job?
Community. If I had one thing that I would say that really warms me and makes me want to continue to do this job another 20 years, it is interacting with our community, especially our young people.
So what do you think is the biggest misconception about the police and the job and everything?
I think that people don't understand that we are just like them. We come from the community in which we serve. And so all of those nuances, those family dynamics, those issues that people face every day, police officers also have those concerns, issues, and that the fact that they think that we're just all about enforcement. We've been very intentional over the last 4 years of being in Columbus. Our goal, don't get me wrong, part of law enforcement is enforcement, but a vast majority of it is community engagement. How do we engage the community, and what issues or concerns can we work together to have a solution for? And so I would say the biggest misconception is that officers are just out here to write tickets, lock up, bad people. And a lot of it, every day-to-day work is just engagement. A lot of times you don't hear about it because nothing happens in that engagement, but they touch thousands and thousands of people daily without incident.
Absolutely. So what about from the cadet perspective? Was there any misconceptions you hear on the other side?
Absolutely. So we've been really intentional. We just reworked our cadet program. Happy to say, since I've been put in charge of it, we've had the most diverse class. We just had our largest female class of cadets. And some of the things we heard from the community is that they were just afraid to be a police officer for many reasons, right? Some is because of the demographics in which they grew up, which would be the neighborhood. The only time that they saw law enforcement was negative. Some of it was cultural. We have a large melting pot of different nationalities, and some of them, their experience with law enforcement in their native country was not positive. And so just continuing to break down those barriers, make ourselves a resource, and inviting people in has been a force multiplier for us when it involves increasing not only our diversity, but our women in law enforcement.
So do you think that's why sometimes people are so afraid of the police, do you think?
Absolutely. I think it just depends on how you grew up. If every encounter you had with law enforcement was a wave when they're driving by in your neighborhood, your experience is going to be different than somebody who may have grew up in an impoverished area where the police were seen as a enforcement tool and not necessarily engagement.
So what other outside challenges are to the job?
Oh, I would say, we're always fighting the media perception, right? A lot of it is people being educated with snippets video, a 2-second video of what a police officer decision they made, and maybe not understanding what led up to that decision. So we're always fighting against social media perception, and then just some miseducation of what we are as law enforcement, what our training is, what our background is, and some of the changes that we're advocating for that work on behalf of the public.
So does that manifest as safety concerns for the police, whether it's cybersecurity or citizen journalism? I mean, there's a lot of challenges.
We're open to criticism. I think as an agency, you have to have those kind of like watch guard advocates out there who, keep us doing what we're supposed to do, keep our integrity intact. But some of it is counterproductive as we're trying to really reimagine what policing looks like post 2020 when we had civil unrest. It doesn't help when we have some of those false narratives that are put in the community that are just untrue, that are reported. And when people knowingly do it, it does make it very difficult for us to do our job.
Well, it's very easy to manipulate a story if you only see 3 seconds of it, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
you can talk to a cop, and you don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to
You
run.
don't. You don't. We got,
Right.
with anything, I always tell people, you got good and bad, right? We try to weed out bad cops as best as we can. We have all these safeguards, but human nature will always be human nature. The goal is that when we identify them, that we remove them swiftly,
Yeah.
which is what we're trying to do here. But, even with that, you have, union contracts, you have, those kind of proceedings that don't happen as fast as some people will want it to. But I would say out of 1,800 police officers, the vast majority are here for the right reasons.
Yes. Most cops I've ever spoken to,
Yes.
even when I have to do the work with other municipalities, it's all good reasons. They're
Yes.
not, no one's ever like this power hungry. It's not about that. They're like, I want to help people. I want to make a difference. It's,
Yes.
it's all those common themes. And it just makes me sad that that story gets lost sometimes because of the sense. It's not sensational, right? It doesn't make breaking news. And
You're right. It doesn't leave with the blood.
no,
Yeah.
there's no blood. And when
Yeah.
I work for a media group like Channel 10, unless somebody dies, they're not going to cover it. And I'm like, but that's crazy. A lot of people could learn from this, and you're missing the opportunity to educate people because now it freaks people out because, well, it makes ratings. People are going to check in.
That's it.
And it's like, oh, come on, you guys. Which is
We have to go back to, and I appreciate your podcast so much because we understand that as a law enforcement body, we are going to be under scrutiny. And when we make mistakes, we have to be transparent, right? And we have to admit those faults.
Yeah.
But policing does not get enough credit with the day-to-day interactions. Millions and millions of people interact with police officers on a day-to-day basis, and nothing happens. They're all positive interactions that don't get talked about. And you have officers out here doing amazing work that are paying out of their pocket to solve issues in the community that maybe red tape takes too long.
Yes.
And so our goal is to highlight those officers and do a better job of highlighting what they do day in and day out that sometimes doesn't make the news. But we as an agency have a core responsibility to make sure that we put our officers who are doing things the way that they should be doing them. We should put them on the front page like we do bad officers. We do not like patting ourselves on the back, but I think we owe it to our, not just to our profession, but to those officers that are coming through, that are young right now, looking to see what kind of impact they can have. If we don't sell our story and we don't tell our story, then who are we expecting to tell the story?
Well, and then it minimizes the burnout because if you feel like, oh, they're just rough and nobody cares when I'm here and then you're like, why? I thought I was going to help somebody and what happened?
Yes.
And it's like, well, you still are. It's just.
I always tell people is because, when I came up, it was like, oh, law enforcement is a thankless job.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Every day, community is thanking us in a different way. I mean, when they show up to our events, when they share something that we're doing positive, those are thank yous. It may not be the thank you of walking up to you saying thank you, but everyday community, it just depends on where you look.
Yeah.
If you look for negative, you'll find it. If you look for positive, you'll find it.
So, the regular public, how can they help the police and still feel safe about it?
Ooh, I would say we have a Citizen Police Academy. We hold 3 classes a year. That's a great way to see what training we receive and how we interact with the public and some of the innovative things that we're doing. But also we have a Chiefs Advisory Panel, which is made up of all community members. And so right now we have a total of 8. We're looking for 10. So we have 2 more spots. And we've been intentional with making sure that they're from every cross demographic across the city. But just even from community engagement, when you see that we're hosting a town hall or that we're doing something in the community, we want people to show up, and not just people who are going to praise us, but those who find difficulty in some of the things that we're doing. We're not looking for everybody to love everything that we do, but we are looking for partnerships. And that starts with community-based organizations. That starts with mom and pops who are just in the neighborhood, who know their neighbors. And so we're trying to really engage not only our youth, but our elderly and everybody in between.
Well, I think sometimes I hear people, I would do something, but I don't want retaliation. Any advice for some of those folks?
This is what I usually tell people. We have so many avenues that you can report things without anybody ever knowing who you are. Crime Stoppers is a really big one, but we also take anonymous information over the phone. We have ways in which our officers can meet you in a disclosed location where somebody don't know you're giving us that information. But I always say that it may be your neighbor that's the victim today, but it could be you tomorrow. And so you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can as a citizen to not just help the police, but also help your own community and where you have to live and work and play.
So what is the 30 by 30 initiative?
So it is a national organization that is committed to having 30% women in law enforcement by 2030. And Columbus, we signed on about a year ago, really committed to increasing our diversity numbers, especially as it relates to women, because statistically, we know that when women are involved in policing, all of those negative numbers go down. The numbers for citizen complaints go down. The numbers for officer involved shootings go down. The numbers for uses of forces go down, and community engagement goes up. And so women bring something different to law enforcement. And this is not to negate the value that men bring, but there's something about being a woman in law enforcement that has showed dividends across the country as it relates to when women are in leadership roles and from the lower level of just a police officer on a beat.
So what surprised you the most about your job?
Oh, I would say two things. One would be the amount of effort that it takes to dispel rumors.
Oh.
I would say that would be one of the things. We're constantly putting out those rumors and fires and things that pop up. But I would say the second thing, and it's been really a positive, is the amount of community that is really committed to having a harmonious relationship with the police. I think when you look at media, you would think that there's this us against them mentality. And I found that to be so untrue. Even in Detroit, where I previously worked, and now in Columbus, community wants to get engaged. They just want to know, how can we do it? And I think police officers and law enforcement agencies, we have not been strategic on how we engage them. And so we're trying to change that here in Columbus.
So do you think that's where, the police force, I understand they're training on the police dialogue. Can you shine some light on that?
Yeah, so this came about learning from the mistakes of 2020 when Columbus experienced civil unrest. We made some mistakes. That is very true. And so we had to come back to the table and say, what could we have done differently? If this was to happen again, what are some of the steps that we can make to make the community more engaged? And so dialogue team was created by Commander Maybury, who actually started this, did some research out of the UK, went to the UK, learned their techniques, brought them back here, and Columbus stood up their first dialogue team. And we have over 100 officers that are trained. And what we do is whenever we understand that there's a protest or something that is happening, we send those dialogue teams out there. They're not enforcement teams. Their sole purpose is to communicate with those organizers and see how can we get their point across, but also do it in a safe, effective way that makes it safe for the community and the police officers.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I was kind of curious that what kind of advice would you give to a young cadet?
Oh, I would say keep those ideas of trying to change the world. I know one of the things that I was told when I entered law enforcement at 18 years old, you're not going to be able to save everyone. And that is absolutely true. But one of the things that I think keeps me motivated and keeps me continuing to be innovative, empathetic, compassionate, all those things you want in a police officer, is because I still believe that I can change the world. And I would say to that cadet, it's going to be tough. There are going to be some things that you see, that you do, that will hit you in your core that may not feel good. But get up every day knowing that you matter and you are a change agent, and that the things that you do will change the world not maybe for you, but for those coming, after you. I always say that I'm a seat filler, right? As a leader, my goal is to make this seat as comfy, as warm as it can for the next woman, hopefully, to sit in my seat.
Oh. Now, so if someone is interested in being in the cadet, can you kind of give some light to what the TAPS program is?
Okay, TAPS is Teen and Police Services. And so we're embedded in several middle schools. It's a mentorship program. It's where our officers are partnered with what we consider at-risk youth, and they partner with them through the whole year. They teach them about teen dating, violence. They teach them about gang influence, but they also teach them about community engagement. And the goal is we're starting in the middle schools. We're about to expand to the high schools. The goal is to keep our hands on that child from middle school to high school until either they choose to go to a college or a trade school, so that we don't lose touch with them. What I don't like is programs that have great impact, but they don't last. And so we've made these relationships with these children. It's important that we continue to have that relationship through high school. What we found is the program is very successful in middle school, but then those kids transition to high school and we lose touch with them. So now we're incorporating high school into that matrix. And for us, it's been a game changer. We've saw the fact that just with a little effort and time that we put in, these children really do want to become police officers. Something that I didn't see 4 years ago is when I go to the graduations, you have a lot of them saying, I want to be a police officer. When I first got here, nobody wanted to be a cop. And so just having that relationship continuously pouring into them, but also learning from them. What are we doing right as an agency? What are we doing wrong from out the mouths of young people?
So I recognize that gun violence sometimes spikes in the summer.
Yes.
So what kind of things have you guys done to address that?
So we do Operation Unities. We try to do them once a month, and they're in different zones based off of data. We're a data-driven department. So we're always looking at where does the officers have to go where the crime goes. One of the other things we do is we do moonlight every year. It starts in the summer, it ends in November. And that's a way for officers to be out there with the sole focus of community engagement. They're on bikes, they're on motorcycles, they're walking beats, and they're also on horses. And it's just to have a footprint. We have them in the parks. We have them at community events. We have them at basketball games, football games. And their goal is to just be a voice and something that the citizens, when they see them, they can come up, engage, talk to them. And we found that really has decreased our crime during the summer.
How do you think that attitudes towards guns in general has shifted in the last 5 years?
Ooh, I would say some of the laws don't help us.
Yeah.
We saw a spike in some of our gun crime when we became a very open carry state. But we also understand that as a person who's responsible gun owner, I own several guns, that I also understand that, people want the right to bear arms, understandably. The issue becomes when our children are getting a hold of those guns, which we're seeing at a very alarming rate here in Columbus. And how do we counteract the right to bear arms with responsibility of being a gun owner? So I would say that the community seems to understand our point of view. It's just constant messaging, getting them to understand that it's not just one thing to own a gun, but you're responsible for that weapon at all times.
Absolutely. And sometimes you see kids, you know, taking it to school. Sometimes it becomes something else.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if they totally understand the breadth of that
They
implication.
don't. They do not. And it's up to us as parents, as adults, to make sure that we safeguard our weapons so that they don't get into the hands of our young people.
Absolutely. So when it's all said and done and you're done with your career, what kind of legacy would you like to leave?
Oh, that is a really good question. I would hope that when I'm done in law enforcement, when somebody mentions LaShanna Potts, that people will say she really cared about her profession and she really cared about the community and the impact that her profession has on the community. And so I hope if my legacy is nothing else, that it's a legacy of love, compassion, and dedication to serving mankind.
That's a pretty awesome one.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it, and feel free to post any questions so we can be inspired by new content. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in learning more, visit our website at bakercreative.co.